Hello everyone and welcome. In my last video I shared my thoughts regarding The Walking Dead Season 9 trailer, and you may remember that I mentioned one character in particular who I noticed was missing from said trailer, that being Dwighty Boy. So in this video I'm going to be asking the question, where the hell exactly is Dwight? As well as looking at whether he will return to our screens in October. Just a warning, I will be making a lot of references to post all-out war comic book spoilers throughout this video, so if you don't want to hear about any of that then please don't watch any further. Anyway, without further ado, let's begin. Now first off, I know not everyone is going to care for this video, as not everyone is a Dwight fan. There's those who still don't like him because he killed Denise, as well as those who don't like him because of his allegiance to the Saviours, which of course I do understand, so there's probably a lot of people out there who don't necessarily care that he might not be part of The Walking Dead's future plans. However, for me, Dwight has been one of the outstanding characters during The Walking Dead's last 2 seasons, so much so that he actually went on to become one of my personal favourites. Criticise him all you want, but he really did absolutely everything he could for Rick's group during last season, often putting his own life on the line in doing so, and yet sadly for him he was still never fully accepted by the Alexandrians. Come the end of last season, Dwight found himself in the woods with Daryl effectively exiling him, making it clear that if he did ever come back he'd kill him, which if you ask me is a bit harsh after everything he'd done to help the group that Daryl was fighting for. Anyway, after being told that he was no longer welcome, Dwight sets off immediately to find his estranged girlfriend Sherry, whilst Daryl effectively regained his place as the only crossbow wielding biker on the show. It's going to sound a bit weird, but the scene with Dwight and Daryl actually made me think of the moment in which Quicksilver died in Marvel's Age of Ultron. When the MCU speedster died, it was effectively Marvel Studios' way of saying, you know what folks, you have Quicksilver, he's yours, you just keep him in your X-Men films, we don't really need him. And this is how I felt with Dwight's leaving. It was almost as if the showrunners were saying, we've got Daryl, this crossbow wielding biker, we don't really need another character like him. Dwight, you can stay in the comics, we'll keep Daryl. I might be reading too much into this scene, but it felt to me like a symbolic passing of the torch. Dwight is going to remain in the comics, whilst the TV original Daryl will be allowed to continue his journey. I suppose this send-off could be seen as a potentially happy ending for Dwight. A couple of years have skipped in the world of The Walking Dead since he left, and I like to think that him and Sherry are now chilling somewhere over a crate of beer. His character deserves to be happy, and perhaps this open-ended conclusion that we got is actually for the best. However, it's still a bit of a shame because A, the show has lost a great character, and B, there's lost potential comic storylines involving Dwight that probably will no longer make it to TV. After the war ends in the comics, Dwight effectively becomes de facto leader of the Saviours. He immediately struggles with all his new responsibilities, often telling Rick that he doesn't want to be in charge. Can I see Dwight being in charge of the Saviours on the TV show, even on a temporary basis? Well no, honestly I can't. With the reasons being that if he was the new leader, I would expect to have seen him already in some kind of promotional material relating to this, and also because I don't think his character would just have any interest in doing this at all. I mean, he's always been a reluctant saviour anyway, so why would he want to be in charge? If anything, I think he would probably want as little to do with the group as possible, especially if he has managed to track down Sherry. Also, I don't really think the Saviours would welcome him with open arms anyway. Yes, I know it's been a couple of years since the war ended, but let's not forget he did turn on his own people by shooting them, and throughout the war he was constantly feeding information about their hideouts and outposts to Rick and Daryl. So I don't think that he's probably the best candidate to be a new leader, and at this point he doesn't really have any real reason to return to the Sanctuary. Now there is another reason why I don't think Dwight will return, and that's because of Rick's impending exit. After the Whisperer War ends in the comics, Rick and co have to deal with the aftermath of the herd the group has dropped on their doorstep. It's at this point Sherry arrives armed at Alexandria with Dwight, Laura and Heath hostage, demanding to speak to Rick. Rick takes Sherry up on that offer and decides to have a chat with her in his house, and it's at this point she goes absolutely mental, trying to strangle and stab Rick. Rick manages to kick her away in self-defense, however in doing so he accidentally snaps her neck on a table. What follows are growing tensions between Dwight and Rick, with Dwight blaming him for the death of Sherry even though she did attack Rick first. Furthermore, I didn't really get why Dwight was so angry at Rick causing Sherry's death, seeing as she had screwed him over multiple times in the past already. I can say for certain that I don't see any of this happening in the TV show. I believe that Rick will either die long before the Whisperer War ends or during it, meaning this whole Sherry scenario won't happen. I also don't think we'll see this take place because it is a bit dumb. I did question it in my review of the comics initially, and I don't really want to see it happen on the show. Sherry is a bit of a non-character on the show anyway, and I doubt everyone will remember her, so I don't see The Walking Dead doing a Morales by bringing back another obscure character to fight Rick for some reason. Obviously, Sherry's death goes hand in hand with Dwight's falling out with Rick. If Sherry doesn't return on TV, then I don't think Dwight will return either, because there's not much point of him coming back and him not really doing anything. Yes, I know in the comics he does play a big part in the Whisperer War itself, but that's because he sticks around in the comics after the time skip. He's made the leader of the Saviours immediately after Negan's surrender, so he has no real choice but to stay put. However, this doesn't happen on the show. Instead he leaves straight away to find Sherry, causing the Saviours to have to find their own new leader. Honestly, at this point, I don't think that TV Dwight has any business being part of the Whisperer War. I guess he could potentially return as a Whisperer. Maybe things go wrong when he tries to find Sherry and Alpha picks him up along the way, but truthfully, I don't want to see this. He already spent a lot of his time as part of the Saviours when he didn't really want to be, and I don't want to see him dragged around with another group that he wants no part of. In fact, I think I much prefer the ambiguous ending the show currently has. Of course, a counter-argument to all this debate is that there were other missing characters who weren't in the trailer, such as Ezekiel for example. Which is true, however Ezekiel has already appeared during on-set pictures, and I haven't seen anything of Dwight, which is a bit strange. As much as I do like Dwight, I don't really want to see him again after how his story ended last season. I mean, if he does return, it just means that something has gone wrong with him trying to find Sherry. And at this point in time, I just want his character to have a happy ending. I don't particularly want to see him as a Whisperer either. Yes, it might provide a cheap shock, but I don't think it would make a lot of sense. And I don't see Dwight following around another crazy leader after having to put up with Negan's crap for so long. Also, I feel like Dwight puts up with enough shit from Daryl and the rest of the Alexandrians even when trying to help them, making me question why he would even want to go back to any of the communities. If things haven't worked out for Dwight during the time skip and he hasn't found Sherry, surely it would just be better for him to put everything behind him and just go somewhere else completely, rather than returning back to the communities and being caught up in all the drama again. With the unexpected return of Morales last season, you can never say never with the characters reappearing on The Walking Dead. But I feel that everything is pointing to Dwight not returning, and despite how much I like him, I would rather see his character left alone. I don't want Dwight to return, and I don't think that he will. So that's that for this video. Let me know your thoughts below. Do you think Dwight will return? Do you want him to return? Or do you not really care? Whatever your thoughts, please just let me know. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Until next time, goodbye.